Hey, welcome everyone to another Side of Addiction podcast. I'm your host, Al Richards, and I'm really looking forward to today's guest. We've got some really good stuff that we're going to talk about. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Emergo Academy. That's Emergo Academy. Dave and Susan Kenny, these guys are phenomenal. As a matter of fact, these guys are actually my coaches, and they are the ones that actually trained me and certified me to be a international crisis and recovery coach. What I love about their approach about addiction is it's not really about the addiction. It's all about the brain first approach. And that's what intrigued me to actually take their course because I've always felt, and you guys know my history with the battle that my past wife had, and even my past history with my addiction. It comes from something else, and it's not really the drugs, alcohol, the porn, the gambling, the eating, whatever it may be. It's just because we're trying to numb ourselves. And when we learn how to tap inside our brain and ask it the right questions, really, it's crazy. Our brain starts telling us the answers, and we start figuring things out. So even if you guys aren't even interested in becoming certified as a crisis and recovery coach, but you would like to take their course just to help you, because guys, seriously, this has really helped me in my life. You guys know last year in 2025, having a below the knee amputation, losing my wife 4 weeks after that. If it wasn't for the training that I took with these guys, it could have took me in a really dark and deep place. And I used their training to really help me go through my emotions and help me get to where I'm at. So if you guys want to check them out, check out Emergo Academy. Again, that's Emergo Academy.com. Thank you, Dave and Susan. I love you guys and appreciate you. So to get this show going, hey, today with our beautiful guest, Amber Hollingsworth, we are going to be talking about empathy to address denial. Usually I don't read bios, but every once in a while something resonates with me, and Amber's bio resonated with me. So I want to let you guys know who this lady is and all the stuff that she does to help other individuals. So she is a master addiction counselor, founder and hope for Families Recovery Center, creator of the YouTube channel, Put the Shovel Down, and I love that title. With over 2 decades of experience, she's helped thousands of families navigate addiction recovery using innovative relationship-focused strategies like the invisible intervention. And I'd like to know more about that one, Amber. Known for her relatable and non-nonsense approach, Amber empowers families to outsmart addiction, set healthy boundaries, and rebuild trust. Her expertise and compassionate style make her a sought-after podcast guest. That is why she is here. And I thank Charlene for actually reaching out and asking for this and offering practical advice and hope to families facing the challenges of addiction. So, without further ado, Amber, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon, because it's afternoon where you're at. I think you're 2 hours
Hey,
ahead of
yeah.
us. And just say thank you. Thank you for being my guest. And most of all, thank you for doing what you're doing. You know, being on the other side of the addiction myself, I wish I would have known more about resources that's out there that could have helped me when my past wife was going through her addiction, because I did a lot of things wrong. And really, that's what started this podcast was
Wow.
was
Okay.
because of that. So anyway, to get the show going, and again, thank you for being here, talking about the empathy to address denial.
Yeah.
What is your take on all that?
Can I ask you a question first? I don't normally
Absolutely.
do this, but you kind of hinted at, that you have a history I took from it in recovery, and that your wife must have had some struggles.
Hmm.
Okay. So you've been on both sides of this thing.
So I've been on both sides. I didn't look
You're a
at my
double expert witness.
double, yes. And yet it's crazy too, because I didn't really look at myself as an addict, right? It was a weekend, every Friday and Saturday. That's the only time that I did it. So, hey,
Hmm.
2 days out of a week, I got 5 good days, so I'm not really an addict. However, I did it every weekend for 8 years. And the
Hmm.
3 years I dated my wife, I hid it from her. She didn't even know. We drank together,
Hmm.
but she did not know I was doing the
Well,
cocaine,
that hiding is a big sign right there, isn't it?
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A big, big sign. And yeah, so it's kind of crazy how all this has turned out.
All right. Well, thank you for your willingness not just to share that with me, but to share that with other people because I'm sure it's helping so many. So as I go through this, you can stop and you can say, I don't know, Amber, that's not my experience. You can call me out. We'll work it out together because you've been on both sides. So this will be
Hey,
fun.
yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Yeah.
All the shows are fun, so I'm definitely looking forward
All
to it. I
right.
usually wear this smile throughout every single one of my shows, and
So,
some tears,
and some tears.
and
Okay.
some tears.
Um, we want to start out with the whole empathy to break through denial. The thing of it is when you have someone you love and care about who's struggling with an addiction, and maybe it's even someone like you described yourself. Um, it wasn't every day. It wasn't a stereotypical kind of thing. It was an every weekend kind of thing. And so it means you had some control over it to some degree, right?
Hmm.
So especially when you're dealing with what I would call like a functional addict or an alcoholic. This what I'm about to tell you is especially true. I mean, it's always true, but especially in those situations. You we get scared and desperate and hurt and angry and all the things when we're watching someone else go through this. And so we want to like, our instinct is to grab them by the shoulder, sort of shake them up and say, what the heck are you doing? Like you're running from a train, stop, you know? And that's a natural instinct. It comes from a place of, we love this person, but it's like the worst possible thing to do. Because what happens when you come at someone like that is it makes them feel under attack. You're telling them something they don't want to hear. And the key thing to remember is denial is a defense mechanism. And so if you just break it down, just sort of elementary style, it's something someone's using to defend themselves. And so if you come at them in any kind of direct way, even if you don't feel like you're attacking them, but they perceive it as an attack, guess what's going to happen? The defense mechanism is going to get stronger. Think of it like a shield. And so if they perceive you're coming at them under attack, the shield's going to get stronger. So what happens is when you say, you're an alcoholic, I don't care what you say, you're doing this and that and the other, immediately their brain, just as a reflex, and we're all like this, starts to defend themselves. You don't understand. I'm not nearly as bad as that person. I only do it on the weekends. And they have a million reasons. So when you come at someone like that, you're immediately triggering their denial to get worse. So the
Hmm.
shield gets thicker when you do that because they start giving you all the reasons you're wrong, all the reasons why they're not as bad as other people, all the reasons why they've been better lately, all the reasons why you're an overreactor and you're always criticizing them, anything, right? To defend themselves. Because that's what we do when we feel criticized, even when we know we're in the wrong. We
Yeah.
do this. Some of us, depends on our personality, verbalize that quite loudly by telling you those things. Others of us don't necessarily say them out loud, but we definitely are thinking them. And that just depends on am I, conflict avoidant? Am I people pleaser? Do I love a good argument? It just depends on my personality. But everyone is having those defensive thoughts when you're coming at them that way. It's a reflex. So if you're coming at someone directly like that, you're making the denial worse. If you want someone to put the shield down, if you want someone not to have to hold denial as a defense mechanism, you come in with empathy because empathy regulates, since you like brain stuff, regulates the emotional part of the brain, like it's a co regulation thing, which guess what? Allows the thinking part of the brain to work. So you can look at it psychologically, you can look at it biologically, but when someone feels safe, they're more apt to like look at something more honestly and explore it with you because they feel safe and not attacked. It's such a better strategy for getting someone out of denial.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And some of the stuff you was just talking about, I mean, I was flashing back, right, to when my past wife was in the depth of her addiction. I mean, I was flashing back, and I did a lot of that, right? Like grab her by the shoulders and just shake the living hell out of her, going like, "Wake the hell up! What are you doing?" And I got every result that you just said, every
Mhm.
result, every single time. And I even was talking with somebody once about it, and actually, I think it was one of her counselors once, and she says, "What are you doing?" And I was telling her, and she goes, "How's it working out for you?" And I'm like, "It's not." And
Such a
and
passive
she goes,
aggressive
"But yet you
counselor thing
keep
to
doing it,
say.
right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do keep doing it,
Yeah.
because I think it's going to wake her up one day." But again, like you said, all it did was make it worse.
But you probably no one was giving you any other tool or way to go about it either.
No. Well,
So you're just
heart, tough love, sympathy, empathy. I mean, anything everyone tried to tell me, and these were people who also had addiction in their families or they had a child or something like that. And I don't know. I like to even say that, and maybe I'm wrong, and you may know this, Amber, but when it comes to a child, I think it's a different sandbox than it is when
Oh,
it's
yeah.
your spouse.
The techniques are the same, the strategies are the same, but the emotions that you're going through are different. We get mad at a spouse and be done with them in a minute. Honestly, let's just be
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Just waiting on it sometimes. But those kids, we just can't be done with even when we want to. Like it's just wiring. And so I like to say the spouses are angry and the parents are desperate, scared, to put an
Ooh,
over generalization on it. Yeah.
I got to write that down. So spouses are angry.
Yeah, they're like, dude, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I didn't get any informed consent. How did we get here? Yeah,
And you said parents are desperate, right?
scared to death.
Oh, scared to death. Okay.
Scared, desperate. Yeah, they're coming from like a scared place.
Okay. I really like that. Yeah. Yeah. So it is a different sandbox.
Yeah. What do you remember when people would tell you the different strategies and that kind of thing? What do you remember thinking as the family member? Like, how did that make you feel? And I hate that question, but like when people are saying, "Well, you should do tough love," or "How's that working for you?" Like, what was that experience like for you?
It was just confusing. All of it
Okay.
was so confusing for
Yeah.
me, because you didn't know who was telling you the right stuff and who was telling you the wrong stuff. I was playing golf with a guy and the reason why we played this golf game and my buddy hooked me up with this guy because his daughter battled addiction, you
Hmm.
know, and I'm like, hey, what did you do? And he goes, my gosh, I put my foot down and I just, and he says, I just slammed her with everything, and I'm like, oh, huh. And he's telling me all this stuff. I'm like, all right. So what do I do the next time that happens? Man, I'm putting my foot down on my fist and here I go. And next thing I know, the cops are over because she throws a fit and she's throwing things. And of course, she's hammered, right? And she's doing what she's going to do. She's going to defend herself. Those walls go up, just like what you was talking about, and those walls just getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And then, of course, I'm threatening things, which I threatened over and over and over to where
Oh yeah.
all it was a threat. I never
Right.
did take action until years down the road. But again, it's something that I was just confused. I was in one of my guests told me 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, that I became addicted to her addiction, and he had nailed it. I
Mhm.
I definitely was.
Right. They're obsessed about whatever the addiction is. They're thinking about it nonstop, planning, scheming, hiding, everything. But it's the family members, same thing. Obsessed with how to make it stop, planning, scheming, hiding, spying, sneaking, controlling. I mean, it's a parallel process for sure. And both people are coming from a place of desperation.
Hmm.
And it's when we're in that fear place in our mind, we just don't make good choices. We make emotional choices. And those aren't usually they don't usually work out the best for us. Emotions are important. They tell us important information, but they don't tell us what to do about it.
Oh,
So
exactly.
you're right. So
Yeah.
um I hear that kind of thing all the time, like the tough love approach. And there's a little, in my mind, there's a little degree of truthfulness in that. And that part is that it does have to get a little uncomfortable before someone's going to change. The pros and the cons, the cons have to start out weighing the pros a bit. But if you press someone to the very edge, you throw them out, they're homeless, they're in prison, they've lost their kids, these like hardcore hit bottom things that people think is going to fix people. I think it's much harder to bring people back from that because they've dug so far. A couple of things happen. They just feel completely hopeless, like they've just dug so far like they could never fix things, or they've burned all their bridges, they don't have any money left, they don't have any relationships left, all the things that so they're not very motivated to change because they don't even feel like it's possible. And secondly, they get used to it. People get used to any situation. So you think if I throw someone out, they're going to know I'm serious and they're going to feel the consequences and they're going to get better. You throw someone out, I guarantee you their use is going to get worse immediately. And I'm not saying that because I'm saying you shouldn't throw them out. I'm saying that because you shouldn't do it if you're doing it because you think that's going to make the person stop. It's about why you're doing what you're doing and how you're coming at it. So yeah, I do think you have to half of the equation is allowing the natural consequences, but that's only half. The other half is you not being the bad guy. Because here's the thing. If that person can convince themselves that the consequences are because of you, because it's a punishment or something that you're inflicting on them, they don't learn the lesson. They learn that you're a big jerk. I can't believe you called the cops on me, blah, 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 all the things. And they learn the opposite. They feel like, yeah, I got a problem. My problem is you, not I got a problem. And why do I keep doing all this stuff? So it has to be natural consequences. It cannot be perceived in any kind of way that it's your fault. If your son who's addicted to heroin gets arrested because you called the cops, he's not going to learn the lesson. The lesson is, I can't believe you'd have your own son arrested. I can't believe you'd do that to me. And so it gets in the way. So, yeah, there needs to be consequences, but it's so much better if you let the world do that. And if you can have empathy when that happens, now we have a formula biologically and psychologically that greatly increase the chances that someone's going to get honest with themselves. And unfortunately, family members usually go by the opposite. They're so scared the person's going to burn all these bridges that they go around fixing all the problems that it's causing, the outside problems like the money, legal, outside relationships, job, school, all the things. Because, like, oh, we don't want them to permanently mess something up. So we fix all this outside stuff. But we're so mad about having to fix it that we're mad at them inside the relationship. So now we have the worst formula. In their mind, they're fine. Their only problem is you because you fixed all these outside things. And I teach people to reverse that. Let the world do the world. And as much as possible, you be the nice guy. So don't fix it. And then be nicer inside the relationship. That's the formula.
So when you say being nice, I mean, is that just still like also setting your boundaries, right? Because that was something that was very difficult for me, where I would set the boundaries and then of course I didn't stick to the boundaries,
Right.
because I was back doing my best, and I did my best not to use the word fix, because I heard her sister say once when she was visiting her in rehab, did they fix you yet? And she come on court. She goes, I'm not broken. So
Mm-hmm.
don't you ever say that word to me again. So I
See
was
the
very
defensiveness? The alerts are
careful.
on high. I mean, hair trigger, right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So how do you do that and still keep your boundaries? I
Okay.
mean, because
That's a good question. I'm glad you said because probably I'm using the word nice, but what I really mean is just not being the bad guy.
okay.
So really it's more about empathy than niceness. So you can hold your boundary and have empathy at the same time. You can say, I know that's not really fair. I'm changing the rules on you. I said one thing to you a month ago and now I'm doing totally another thing. And that has got to be maddening. You can be empathetic about it. Like you can own your part. You can say, what you can empathize with the tight position you've put them in. So you can hold a boundary. You can allow the natural thing to happen, but you don't want to be screaming mad and I told you so and I did this 100 times. You don't want to play that role, which I know that's what our insides in our head. I call it the first thought. Those are the first thoughts. I'm like, no, go with the first thought. Wait till the second or third one comes because the first one's not good. First one's emotional. So it's like just let that one come on through and then wait for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, man, that takes a lot, right? That takes a lot to get that figured out. Because I remember telling myself, okay, if and when this happens again, I am not going to get upset. I'm not going to get upset. I'm going to hold myself. I'm going to be calm, and I'll be damn Amber. Every single time that fuse got lit, and I was blowing in such a short, and it would get shorter and shorter,
Yeah.
right? I'd be okay for a little while, little while, little while, and then I'd blow. But as it went, it was very, very short,
Right.
and then I'd blow again, and then of course all hell would break loose.
Well, there's a lot of pieces to that, right? Like you're a human being and you have your own sore spots and your own triggers and your own fears and insecurities and all the things. So we got to give ourselves grace, right? Just like we're trying to give the other person grace. The other thing that will help with that, which is it's more than just I'm going to stay calm and cool. It's what am I going to do or say? So it's having a strategy. And then when you understand what you're looking for and what you're waiting to happen, you're just not nearly as dysregulated. Like, for example, like I teach families to help their person go through what I call the bargaining phases. which is all of the I'm going to cut it back. I'm going to stop for 30 days. I'm going to drink beer and not liquor. I'm just going to spend $4,000 on cocaine and not 10. It doesn't matter. All these things where the person tries to manage it without giving it up completely. Like they're like, yeah, it's probably out of hand. I need to bring it back some level. That phase can go on for years. And there's only one way to get on the other side of it. And it's like a checklist. And the only way to get on the other side of it is to get through the dang checklist. So when your person says to you, I'm just going to drink beer and not liquor, I want you to say, you know what? It's not nearly as problematic when you're just drinking beer, because probably true, right? You're thinking, well, you're not going to stick with that or you're going to drink 800, which is true. That's going to happen. But what you're trying to do is let this person learn that that's what's going to happen. So when they say that to you, and then they're going and you're out to eat or at a social event and they order a liquor drink, I don't want you to say a doggone thing. I want you to be saying score and hope it happens faster rather than later, because we're going to learn it faster. So then you just don't feel nearly as dysregulated, because you're like, in your mind, you're like, check, check, because you're like, okay, we're moving on. And you feel kind of good about it. I'm like, golly, the last thing you want to do is let someone bargain and then help make sure that they stick to that. Golly, now we're going back to now. You want that to fail and fail fast.
Yeah.
And so you just don't feel as dysregulated when it fails, because that's what you were intending the whole time.
Hmm.
You feel a victory instead of manipulated or, defeated or hopeless. You're like, all right, moving on. What's next?
Yeah. And I'm sure you don't want to say, I told you so.
Oh, absolutely not. In your
Yeah.
own head, you can give yourself a little high five or call Amber up and we all do fist bump.
Yeah, do one of those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I guess some of this, what you're talking about, could also fall into like the intervention without the ultimatums.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem with the old school intervention, and I'm not against them, I do think that there are certain situations where that's absolutely what you need to do. And when I say old school intervention, I mean like what you see on the TV show. Like you get the family and friends in a room, everybody has a letter, and they sort of put a if you don't, then this, and push this person into going to treatment. As a whole, I don't have a problem with that approach, because research shows, and my experience shows, doesn't really matter how someone got to treatment. If you can get their brain cleaned up long enough, it can be very helpful, even if they didn't want to, even if they went because they had to or they were going to prison, even if they went because y'all intervened, right? If that person's addiction is bad enough that they know it's a problem, like they're not really in denial. Maybe they're denying it to you, but they know they're an addict or an alcoholic. Then, yes, sometimes you just have to force someone's brain to get cleaned up enough so that they can think, like their brain can function well enough to decide to stay sober. That can work. But if you take somebody that's still truly in denial, that's still functioning in an area or two of their life, like maybe their home life's falling apart, but they're killing it at work or something like that, and you force that person in treatment, I'm not saying that you can't get them to go, because a lot of times you can pressure them to go. But if in their mind they're not done bargaining, they're going back. And treatment is very helpful, but it's like an antibiotic. You want to use the timing needs to be right, because people get over treatmentized and it loses effect. And if you send them at the wrong time, they're going in looking for how it's not going to work for them, how they're not like these people, how they actually just met people that like really knew how to do drugs, and now they're like, you find what you're looking for. So if they go in looking for those things, they're going to find those things. So it's not so much that I'm opposed to like forcing someone into treatment, but you got to look at where someone's at in the continuum. If this person is so bad off that there is just no question that they're an addict, they just can't stop, force them on. But hopefully force them in long enough for the brain to clear. Like it's going to have to be longer than detox. That's not long enough. So you're going to force them in, it needs to be at least 30 days. Okay. Like if someone's going, but they don't want to, I'm not opposed to it all, but you need enough time. But if that person is still somewhat functional and they think that this is ridiculous, they may go because they may know if they don't, they're going to lose something that they wanted. So they may go, but it's not going to take. You see what I'm saying? And then they're going to come back out and we're going to do the bargains one way or the other. So that's why it's like, let's get them bargains done. Like, let's not spend $45,000 on treatment and come out and have five more bargains, because then when they really need to go treatment and they're ready, they're like, I tried that, didn't work. And you done paid all your money, you don't have any money left to pay it. So it's like understanding the phases and the timing and the psychology and the when to pull what card.
Yeah. And I think that was a tough one too, right? I mean, it's just like the gamble, right? How good are you at reading the cards? Because I know, um, with what I was dealing with, the first two or three times she went is because of me.
Right.
And it really didn't do anything. Because she really did not want to stop at the time. She was okay. And it was before really things really started getting deep where she ended up losing her license and
Was
everything.
it like she didn't want to stop, or she wasn't convinced that she needed to stop?
She wasn't convinced, basically.
That's the key one. It's not wait till they want to stop, because that's not happening, people. That's a myth. Like, you don't want to stop drinking, you don't want to stop drinking. Like, that's why we got here. So don't wait for them to want to, but you do gotta wait for them to sort of understand that they need to for it to click in. And another thing that happens, I'm glad you said what you said, is like when you go to treatment, let's say you did go because your spouse wanted you to go, or your kids, or whatever, as long as you know you really do need it, I think that's okay. But people in treatment will say, oh, you're just here because you don't even want this for yourself. This isn't going to take. And then it's not going to take because they just told you it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And now they're even more convinced. You know what I say when someone says that to me? I say, I have a lot of respect for you. You put your marriage ahead. Like, you did this for your family. And I think that's the best reason to stop. Because you know what? If it's just me, stop for me. You know what I'd do for my family? I wouldn't do for myself. A lot. And so I reinforce that and encourage that. And they're like, you, I'm like, what a respectable thing to do. And then I'll say, tell me about your husband. Why is he so great? What's he worth all this? And then I make them tell me why you're so great. And then they're reinforcing it in their own head. Right. So it's not that you can't do it for someone else. In fact, I haven't found a reason that I don't like. I like all the reasons. If I'm doing it because my husband wanted me to, if I'm doing it because I don't want to go to prison, if I'm doing it because I want to get my kids back from Child Protective Services, if I'm doing it because I think it makes me gain weight or makes my face break out, I don't care. I like them all. The thing I'm looking for is, do you know you need to do it?
Yeah.
Right. And the more other reasons you have, the better.
Yeah, again, it's that fine line, right? It's so touchy because it ends up being that vicious cycle. Yeah, and I'm sure I know a lot of my listeners who follow this, they've heard me say this before too, and I'm sure you hear it as well. She went to, I think it was a total of 8 different rehabs. And as a loved one that's watching this, I remember after her third one when she's like, I'm going to go back into rehab. And literally, I told her, I'm just being honest. I'm like, what good is it going to do? Hasn't done you anything so far. Why
Right.
are you wasting your time? Right. And again, that's me trying to get her and doing it the wrong way, getting her to maybe go, maybe I need to do it differently or whatever. And of course, she also said that she's protecting her, going, well, this place wasn't really what I was looking for. Or this place, this is what was happening. And I didn't like my counselor or this or that, and I was talking to somebody once who is in long-term recovery. And they said, Al, you're not looking at it right. And I'm like, okay, well, how the hell am I supposed to be looking at this? And they're like, she's not stopped trying.
Right.
At least she says, I'm going to go, which means she knows she has an issue and she
She
wants to
knows
get
she needs
better.
to, and she thinks
Yeah.
there's an answer out there. That's
Uh-huh.
two biggies.
Big one.
Right.
And here I
Right.
am pulling the freaking reins back on it and not
Right.
even
Yeah.
realizing I was doing it.
That's just first thought. Don't worry about it. That's what thought we always have. Everybody has that thought. We all said it. We all think it. Don't feel bad about it. That's a normal human response. But not only do I agree with this other person about this a good sign, but you can exploit that situation. You can use what you're saying and just reverse it and make it work for you. So like when someone says, I'm going to stop again, instead of saying what's different this time, which is what everyone wants to say, you know what I say? I say, I can hear a conviction in your voice I've never heard before. They'll say, yeah. I say, what's something's different? What's different? And then they'll start telling me, instead of saying what's different this time sarcastically, I'm saying something's different. What's different? Like with empathy and curiosity. And then they start telling me what's different. And then they start saying, I'm going to go to this treatment center. I'm going to say, you know what? I think it's going to be so much better because you had that terrible counselor before and that didn't work because blah, blah, blah. This place over here, this way, this is going to work for you because this and this and this. So you want to reinforce this because they feel even stronger about their decision and even more committed to making it work. And they feel more hopeful about it working. Like you can set the stage. It's just understanding strategy. If I say this, what are they going to think? You got to think to yourself, when I say this thought, what are they going to think? Not what I want to say, what I think is fair, what's right. It's like what is the and it's pretty easy. You know this person well. You could have told me what they were gonna say, what they're gonna think, what they're gonna think for the next week about it. You could have told me. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So it's just basically just changing the words around a little bit
Yeah.
and actually saying it in a different way as far as your attitude and your excitement.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean they're really quick at knowing that you're feeding them full of shit as well.
Right.
If it's the wrong tone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And there's a process in my process, like the invisible intervention thing you mentioned. The first thing is you got to get out of the bad guy role. We got to get to neutral, right? Because right now they see you in 99% of the cases, they see the family member as the enemy, right? And so you've got to get yourself out of that role. Even if you're the family member that's just been enabling them, they still probably see you as the enemy because it makes them feel shameful. You're paying their bills, you're doing everything for them. It's like you're the bad guy no matter what, right? So you got to get out of that role. Like you couldn't just be in that role today and then tomorrow say what I said and it worked because then they're looking at you like skeptical. So you got to kind of reset the relationship a little bit. And you just do that by handling, say something they didn't expect, say something different, right? And then they've got your attention, they're listening to you. Now you can influence them, which is what I call it. You can't make someone sober, but you can influence them. And the reason I know that is because that's what I've done my whole career. I've been
Yeah.
dealing with addicts and alcoholics who were sitting in front of me, who did not want to be sitting in front of me, who didn't want to talk to me, who didn't think they had a problem, who were forced in, leveraged in, conned in, promised, all the things. And I'm still able to take that. It takes a longer time, but I can still get them there. So these days I teach the family members to do that. And then by the time they get to me, they're ready. If we
Yeah.
get there like years faster.
Yeah, and I can see how that would work. And with what you just shared, Amber, my thoughts go back. So myself and a beautiful friend of mine who lives here in St. George, her name's Mallory.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both the co-founders of the Healing Utah Success Summit that we started. Matter of fact, we're planning our sixth one right now.
Mm-hmm.
And age 19, she was in the courtroom in front of a judge and she's getting ready. She doesn't know if she's going to be sentenced to 20 or 30 years in prison for
Wow.
her heroin use, right? At age
Yeah.
19. And like a Hollywood movie, a guy comes busting in the courtroom, says, Your Honor, may I approach the bench? And he went up and said something to the bench. She's like, What the hell's going on? Who is this guy? Starts walking out and he goes, I'll see you out in the hall. And she's like, What's going on? And the judge throws his gavel down and says, I won't say her last name, but says Miss So and so. And you need to go outside and speak with the gentleman that just walked out the doors. And she's like, What the heck just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this guy ended up being like her parole officer. And he gave her an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And what does a good addict do? Hey, I'm free. I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. So, her and her friends go down to Vegas. They rob some hookers down there to get enough money to buy their heroin. And she wasn't
Mm-hmm.
supposed to leave Utah. And anyway, they were watching her. Goes back to his office and he says, Well, I'm going to write a letter to the judge and see you, man. I gave you an opportunity. You're getting ready to go to prison. And where I'm going with this is she's crying, she's bawling, please give me another chance. And this guy stood up and slammed his hands down on the desk and says, What do I got to get you to realize your life is worth it? And she told him, I don't want to be forced in recovery. I want to be inspired in recovery. She ended up writing a book and titled it that, Inspired to Recover.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kept her promise with this guy. He ended up passing away of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And this man met everything to her. And that's what got her and where she's at today was through the inspiration instead of what a lot of us do and throw the daggers.
Through the influence. You see, he was the good guy, not the bad guy. He was the knight in shining armor. And so here, what I tell people, I'm like, being nice to them isn't going to make them sober. Okay. That's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is being empathetic with them is going to be, you're not distracting them anymore. And so they're going to see the problem. They're not going to fix it. They're going to get themselves in a mess. And when they do, now you're in a position of influence, just like the story you just told me about the guy. Like, I care what you think. And you're important to me, and I don't want to disappoint you. If you've been the bad guy, dude, I'm getting wasted just to make you mad.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, like I'm doing on purpose. So, like, but when you've put yourself in a position of trust, credibility, and influence, that's what I do. So I just sort of set it up. We got a good relationship. I just wait. You're going to get yourself in a big old mess. And I'm going to say, oh my God, we got to call up this place. We got to do this and this and this. I'm going to call your probation officer. We're going to get this fixed. And then I'm get them to do whatever I want them to do. And they feel like I helped them because I did help them. Right. Instead of feel like I was trying to force them or make them do something they didn't want to do. They're like, oh my God, thank gosh, Amber. It's just the way it's a setup. Right. And that guy had been the hero. So even though he got kind of, you know, loud about it, he'd already set the right stage. So it mattered when he got that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Because with what you said just a second ago, I don't know how many times my wife told me, she goes, some of the stuff that you said, she goes, I'm like a teenager. I just want to rebel, just say F you and just rebel. And I found that to be so odd. I mean, here's this lady that, she's in her 40s and then it ended up being back in when she was in her 50s. And I'm like, yeah, you're acting like a freaking 15-year-old, rebelling against their parents because their parents are doing their best to try to get them to see. However, again, we're going about it the wrong way on the other side.
Yeah, well, you're in the parent-child dynamic.
Mhm.
When you have a spouse like this, you end up in a parent-child dynamic. So you're being the parent and they're being the child. I mean, it's just natural. To be honest, right? It's like I know what's best for you. You need to do this, blah blah blah. And if you don't, this is gonna happen. I mean, what other way is there to? I mean, any
Yeah.
person would be respond that way. It's a natural reflex. Everybody wants autonomy and control. It's human need.
Hmm.
And so some people are more verbal about saying it. Some people are less verbal. So you might think, well, my person's not that oppositional. Yes, they are. They're just not saying it to you. They're the worst. They're the hardest. I'd rather someone come in and give me a hard time. I know what they're thinking. I know where to start and where my strategy needs to be. These ones that say, yeah, you're right every time. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're harder, I think. They seem easier to interact with, but they're harder and take longer to get there mentally. I'd rather just know where you stand and then we can start.
You're being like a sculpture, right? Where you've got this block of marble in front of you and you're just slowly chiseling away to get them to the point to where they finally go, aha.
Right. And I love that's a good metaphor. I've not used that before, but I like it because I'm always like, I'm not trying to push someone in recovery. I'm trying to pull it out of them because it's already in there. And so when you say sculpture, I'm like, it's been in there the whole time because I've been seeing people forever, even the ones that come to see me. And I started with teenagers. I spent many years. You can deal with addicted teenagers. Oh my God, they're the worst. So, because they really are teenagers, they're not just acting like it.
Yeah.
So, um, it's always in there. You just ask the wrong questions. We just say the wrong things and we push in and then we get the opposite of what we want, make things worse. We don't mean to. It's the first natural thought. It's our instinct. But when someone says, I'm never gonna stop, I love it. I say, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff about it. Is there anything about it you don't like? And whether they answer me or not doesn't matter because their brain immediately thinks, what do I don't like about it? And I guarantee you there's a list of things they don't like about it. If they tell it to me, it's even better. I'm saying, oh, really? Tell me more about that. And then I'm getting them to talk about that, right? So it's a what do I need to say to get them to think, feel, say a thought in the right direction, not a thought in the wrong direction. We just basically are just impatient. We try to do it too fast. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you said that because my training was that same way as you heard as I introduced the sponsors of that brain first approach, right? Because seriously, the answers are there.
Yeah.
And I've taken a little bit more training on this and I've understood or have gotten to understand that our brain knows the answer to all the questions. We just have to ask the questions,
Yeah.
and once we can ask the right questions, it triggers something inside that other person. It's like if I tell someone, don't think of a pink elephant, eventually they're going to start thinking of that pink elephant.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start planting different seeds in them and it really does help. And they start finding their answers out on their own. From what I've seen, they start
The
figuring it
motivators are in there. So
out.
it's so I see it as my job to find them and pull them forward. What's already in there. I don't have to push any motivators in because there's a lot in there. Because when you get someone to feel safe enough, they get just a lot more honest with you about it. And then they just start telling you, man, I'm so mad at myself. I can't believe I did that. Blah, blah, blah. And they start being honest. And now you just sit there while they talk themselves into it. Not only do they have their own motivators, but they already know what they need to do, like what's going to work for them. They already know. They've probably been
Mhm.
resisting it because sometimes it's like even when people have been trying, they're bargaining, they're like holding on to something like, well, I just don't want to give up my best friend because we've been together forever. And it's like I keep trying to get sober, but I want to keep this person in. Or, there's some little like, well, I don't want to go to them meetings. And it doesn't matter what it is, but there's like a holdout. And they know deep down that they're just resisting the one thing. Like they already know their path.
Yeah,
And so it's not just pulling the motivators out, but actually like helping them connect to their own path too. And then it'll just work faster.
yeah. Absolutely. I said a metaphor this morning. I was talking to a lovely lady this morning, and I basically said, it's like putting the breadcrumbs out for them,
Hmm.
right? You put the breadcrumbs in, and they finally get to where they pick up enough. They've actually made a loaf of bread.
That's right.
And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that was a great metaphor. Where did you come up with that?" And I'm like, "Hell, I don't know. I just came up with it."
I
But
like that. The bread. That's good. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good
just
one.
pick it up to little pieces. But then pretty soon they've picked up enough to where they actually have a full loaf of bread because
Yeah.
they figured out how to put everything together.
Yeah. I mean, I call it the ET effect with Reese Pieces, but I'm changing. I'm gonna steal yours because yours is better because you have something the whole thing at the end, which mine didn't have. I'm like, I mean, you just putting a little Reese Pieces down,
Yeah.
but the bread is better.
Ah, well,
The
thank you.
bread
I'm
help.
going to have
Yeah.
to even try to use that more, or not try to do that more for myself. Yeah. So here's a question for you, Amber. What got you to do what you're doing? I mean, I've spoke with other people, and I've been asked that question as well. And I was asked that question once in one of my public speaking things, and I opened it up to Q&A, and somebody said, "What got you to do what you do?"
Mm-hmm.
And as I started figuring things out, I'm like, God really put me on this path. I mean, God put me here. I got to give credit to him first.
Mm-hmm.
However, it got me here because of what I've also shared with you today of making so many mistakes, and I get emotional a lot because it's almost a year since I've lost her. And I go back and I'm like, my gosh, if I just would have known what I know now, right? If I just could have figured it out sooner, if I just had the right people in my life to help me get to this area, I could have done things better. Would have saved her? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It's those what ifs. We get to that grieving point where we do a lot of those what ifs, what ifs, what ifs.
Right.
And and anyway, it's just this is what's got me to where I'm at today and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Was the same thing for you, or is it just something that all of a sudden you just had a passion? It's like, I want to just get out there and help as many people as possible.
So, so this is usually the first question I get asked, and I'm glad you didn't ask it to me first because I don't like this question first. Everyone I know that does anything around this kind of work is more like you. They have these great, I call them origin stories, and I'm beyond jealous. Like, I'm like, man, if I had an origin story, I wish I did. I got here by accident. I'm not in recovery myself. That's usually the first question people want to know.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, I used to be super self-conscious about that because people immediately disqualify you. I mean, addicts and alcoholics are looking for anything to disqualify you anyway. And they don't even have to look hard if you're not in recovery. Like, immediately, well, you all know nothing, right? But I do come from an addicted family, like hardcore, like parents, grandparents, cousins, aunts. I mean, like hardcore. But I wish I could say that's how I got in the field, but it's not. I mean, I didn't even know how bad my family was till I was already in the field. I'm like, dang, that wasn't good. Because when you grow up in it, it's just your normal. You don't know it. But here's the thing. I used to see it as almost like a disability not being in recovery, but now I see it as a gift because um it's kind of like if you're blind, your hearing might get better. That's the way I see it. Because I wasn't. And I know people think, well, they teach you that in counseling school. They don't. They don't. They don't. You get one class on addiction, and that involves go sit in on 3 12-step meetings and write some reports and tell us what it's like. Like literally, that's it. Okay. And they put like the Genetic disease curve on the board, which isn't even relevant anymore. Okay. So no, they don't teach you that in school. I got here accidentally because I was a school teacher, went to school to be a counselor. I was going to be a school counselor because that seems obvious, but I couldn't afford to take off an entire year and intern as a school counselor and not have income. Like I support myself. I always, I've been working since I was 13, so I always had to support myself. Well,
Wow.
so at the last minute in graduate school, I just changed it to community counseling so that I could do it in the summer because as a teacher, I was off in the summer. And then they just threw me into some addiction IOP, basically, was the first thing. And then because I'd been a school teacher, they're like, well, we want you to build an IOP for teenagers since because I had taught high school, which I wasn't even good at. But I said, okay, and acted like I knew what I was doing, and I didn't. I knew nothing. So I didn't have the schooling knowledge to know what I was doing. I wasn't personally in recovery, but I am a little codependent, and I didn't want people to know I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just going to fake it, right? And so they were like, we want you to like design an IOP for teenagers because you've done your internship in this adult IOP. You used to work with teenagers. I did some work on the teenage unit in this hospital I was interning at. I said, all right, I got it. And then all of a sudden I found myself 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, from 6 to 9 o'clock, 3 hour stretches, sitting in the room with addicted teenagers, not knowing what I was doing, absolutely in over my head. You couldn't be in any deeper water than I was in. And these kids definitely didn't want to be there. And they're teenagers, right? And I just thought to myself, I said, well, the first thing I gotta do is just make sure these kids keep coming because if they don't come, my gig is up. Right. So I had no idea how to get them to stop using drugs, but I'm like, I'm just gonna make this not be awful. And so I'm just going to try to connect to these teenagers and make this somewhat pleasant experience. And the crazy thing, I mean, I ended up learning a lot about addiction along the way, but the crazy and most important thing is that one piece right there is the key because it made it not horrible. My motto was, we like you more than they like you, meaning me and your other peers in here like you more than your drug friends like you. We're going to prove it. We're going to stick when time gets tough. And then people want to keep coming. And then they want to keep coming because they want to hear, when you go to meetings, you hear other people's stories. It's like watching your show on Netflix. You want to hear what happens. And so they would come. They would literally come. And so then I liked them. They liked me. So I didn't want them to go away. So then I said, well, if you graduate and you're doing good, I'm going to let you be a mentor. And you come as long as you want to for free. You can help me help other people. And then, but you got to get sober to do that. Like I can't have you mentoring and, doing all this crazy stuff. So they got sober and stay sober because they want to come and be mentors and keep this whole program going. So if I had never learned anything else and I just learned that one thing, that worked pretty dang well. Yeah, it worked.
Now, when you said that piece, you said just
Mhm.
a minute ago that one piece, was that one piece you're meaning the connection?
The connection is making them feel good about coming. I mean, and it's not when I shouldn't even use the word nice like I used it before because I'm actually really direct with people. But I have enough relationship to be direct. You know how you can be like real with your best friend? You can be real with people
Yeah.
that you're super your
Mhm.
brother or whatever because you have enough relationship with them. It's not that I'm like super nice and soft and sunshine and rainbows. It's that I've built enough trust and credibility with people that we can talk real with each other. And someone can say, "You're not gonna believe Amber, I totally messed up." And I'm gonna say, "Dude, I can't believe you did that. You're in so much trouble," And then like we can be real and we can get somewhere. But it's that The first thing is to build influence, whether you're the counselor, the family member, whoever you are, you've got to make interacting with you not terrible. Because if you can't get them to speak to you or show up, you got nothing. So step one, make interacting with you not be terrible. I was coaching. We have this spouses group where these are people that are all married to functional alcoholics, and one of them had come, and the person had been sober for a really long time, and they said, "Well, I'm about to go on this certain thing event they do every year, and I'm not sure I might drink." And told their spouses, and all that was like, spiral, as you could
Mhm.
imagine, right? Because
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, when is this like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, if your person ever tells you that they messed up or that they're thinking about it, you want them to leave that interaction feeling so glad they told you that. Because what these spouses say to me, I just wish they wouldn't lie to me. I just wish they would tell me. I'm like, if you just wish they would tell you, you got to make sure telling you is a pleasant experience. It's not agreeing with you. It's not saying go ahead. Because actually, if they can tell you, they'll talk to you more about it and they'll talk themselves through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And gosh, see that those flashbacks came to me when you was explaining that because my wife, she went 2.5 years sober, and there was, I think, a total of twice where she slipped, and it was something very quick.
Mhm.
And of course, me, I'm worried, right? I'm scared to death that, oh my gosh, here we go
Here we
again.
go again. Oh, yeah. Scary. Yeah.
And she was honest and told me about it. She says, I need to tell you something, babe. I drank last night. And I'm like, okay. And I said, I had a feeling that you just didn't get to that point where I could really kind of tell,
Yeah.
and I did that. I know it at a short period of time I did right. And I'm like, thank
Yeah.
you
That
for
was
being
great. Yeah.
honest with me, right? I do appreciate it. And I said, so um, how do you feel about this as being part of your sobriety? And she goes, I'm still going to continue to count my days forward. I'm not going to start all over again.
Yeah.
And again, I did something right for once again. And I'm
Yeah. I
like,
like it.
well, it's your journey, right? It's your story.
Mhm.
So if this is how you want to go. And she did. She continued, to count her days,
Yeah.
and it was cool to see that. But then I could also tell when she started white knuckling it again, and I could see her starting to slip backwards because those old behaviors started coming back. And then
Right. Hmm.
there it was, it happened again. But what you shared there, yes, that was very, very important, and I'm glad I was able to handle it that way. And I think
No, that
her
was beautiful. If you
sobriety
if
did.
you'd known me and called me up and said, Amber, what did you I would have told you that exact script. That was
Yeah,
like
thank you.
that was spot on. Oh yeah. Gold
Yeah, and
stars all the
it's
way. Yeah. And
and
that's not
it's
easy because inside you're freaking out, right? Like,
oh yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, because I tell you what, there was times where she would open up to me, and one of our good friends, Tiffany, and Tiffany worked with her, and she's with a program here called USARA. And my wife, we were best friends, right? I mean, even when we were actually divorced, but I still called her my wife. She did not like me calling her my ex-wife. She was still in love with me. I was still in love with her. It was just that damn addiction just got in her freaking way.
Right.
And there was times she'd start opening up to me because she felt that she could talk to me, because I finally got myself to that point during her sobriety that I finally started calming down and I wasn't
Yeah.
so quick to react and
Yeah.
throw a temper tantrum. And I finally got to the point where it's like, sweetie, thank you for opening up to me. I really appreciate it. However, I don't feel like I'm the right one because it is bringing triggers to me. It's
Mm-hmm.
scaring me,
Mm-hmm.
thinking you're going to be off in another hour and you're going to be wasted, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting scared. Is there someone that you can call that can understand this a lot better than what I'm understanding? Because if I say anything, my fear was saying the wrong thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? For her to put that wall back up.
Yeah, but just what you said is saying the right thing, right? Like you're just
Okay, well,
calm
see,
and you're
yeah.
being empathetic and you're saying, I'm scared I'm gonna say the wrong thing and make everything worse. And I feel a little equipped because I'm over here being emotional, and that's beautiful. Right? That's true, it's honest, and I'm sure it got you a better response than the other way.
Oh
I
yeah, a
feel
fight
certain
didn't
about it.
break out, which was nice.
And the great thing about it is like when you said is like I would promise myself I was going to keep my cool and I wouldn't. It's hard, but once you get the momentum started, it becomes easier and easier and easier because they start showing you a different side of themselves. And even if they're still engaged in their addiction, the dynamic changes real quickly and it
Hmm.
becomes easier because they become easier to interact with. And then it kind of, you get just this momentum going in. And your answer on that, man, I'm proud of you. Like that whole, you don't want to start your days over. That you could talk to 10 addiction counselors and you could definitely talk to 30 sponsors and they would tell you the opposite of that. But
Yeah.
that is exactly what I told you. When someone tells me that, I said, oh, hell no, we're not starting over. We done come way too far for that. I'm like, absolutely not. And they're like, really? And I'm like, because you can't unknow what you know. No one can take your recovery days away.
Yes.
So the way I say it, I'm like, okay, you were, 103 days sober and you relapse. I'm not giving you today or yesterday, whenever it is. But if you're sober tomorrow, we're going to be 104.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so we missed one little day, a little blip, right? And then we're going to get back on track. Even if you've had a mess up, a big mess up, like a little blip is what I call like a lapse, like what you're describing. But sometimes people go, dive back in. Even then, even when they have to sort of rebuild the whole structure again, they've already built it once, so we already know how to do it. So we're going to build it 100 times faster. That's what I say. I'm like, yeah, we might even have to start from the ground up, but dang, we know exactly the steps to take. And we already know some people that's going to help us. We already know a bricklayer and a contractor. We're going to build this back quick.
Yeah, because the foundation's still there. You may have knocked the walls down, but the foundation's still there. Let's put the
Yeah,
walls back up.
yeah. And I'll say, how many times you done built this house? I'm like, 10. I'm like, all right, then. Here we go. We're an
Redesign.
expert. Right. And other people would just say the opposite of that, like, you're just not getting it. You're not really wanting it for yourself. I don't know. It's like they talk them out of it. And I'm like, what are we doing, people? Like,
Yeah.
why are we doing that?
I had a guest last week, Amber, who also works with people, and he said, I don't like the word relapse. And I'm like, really? And I said, why? And he's like, well, it kind of puts that label, right? And um, I support all ways of recovery. Doesn't matter what it is. It's all about the healing, right? Whatever
Yeah.
works for you to get you to where you want to be. It's
Yeah.
not my job to say otherwise. AA has saved thousands and thousands of people. However, there's a lot of things of AA that I don't care for, where they constantly label themselves as an alcoholic, even though they've been clean and sober for 10 or 15 or 20 years or even a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he says, I just don't like the word relapse because it puts that label back on their forehead. And he says, and it puts them in a category. That's how he sees it. And I'm like, so what is it that you do? And he says, I like to say he says, I like to tell them they took a pause. They just
Mm-hmm.
took a pause. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it was just a little pause.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they're getting back on that horse again, it was just a pause, right? We all take a pause in our life with
Yeah.
different things,
Yeah. I
right?
call it like a blip. That's a blip. That's a
Yeah, and
pebble.
a blip. You said the same thing, and
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that analogy. I love how that is looked at because really it is, right? Because all of us we have a blip in our life, right? There's or that
Of
pause.
course. Of course.
And so, why is it any different for those that are going through even maybe a deeper or harder battle that we may not understand? So,
Right.
they have every right to have that blip or that pause.
Yeah, and for me, I call it's damage control because the worst thing that can happen is this person is like, I've already effed it up to the max. I'm gonna have to start over. Like, and then they just get hopeless and it feels so huge. Or I can't do all this again. And then they just want to give up. And so in some ways, it's weird because a lot of my job is getting people to be honest themselves and looking at it. But I get them to look at it by making it less scary. And most people try to make it more scary. I'm like, everybody's addicted to something. Please, we got it, and you want to minimize it almost because it feels less scary. If it's like, okay, I can look at it. Okay, yeah, I did that. I can see why that happened to me. Now all right, let's fix it. Instead of, this is going to be a lifelong problem. You're going to deal with this forever. You're going to have to go to meetings forever. I mean, that's just like
Yeah.
scary. I mean, you're never going to be able to do it again. I mean, dude, and you're trying to get someone out of denial. You're trying to get someone to want to do it. Come on, I and one of my things I do, like I say, this is like sales, and you're not being a good salesman. Like that does not sound desirable at all.
Yeah, and I love that because I do not care for the term you're powerless to your addiction.
Right.
And no, I think I feel you are power. You have the
Mm-hmm.
power, right? Because we all do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I've got friends who have been in long-term recovery for a lot of years, and they still, maybe they might go out and have a drink every once in a while. That wasn't their issue. Their issue was sticking a needle in their arm.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's also that shame of opening up and being honest about things, and even in the recovery community, because of how others look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were shamed enough in their addiction, and now if the own recovery community, who we're all supposed to be here together and help one another, is shaming them also, man, it's that vicious cycle. and and
Right.
and I love those who celebrate their birthdays. It's like, my gosh, I just had a buddy celebrate 5 years a few months ago. And I've even been asked when I was a guest on another show, and they're like, well, what's your sober date? And I'm like, I don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you don't have one? Everyone does. And I'm like, well, not everyone, because I don't, because that was a time in my life that's no longer a part of my life. So to me, I don't want to celebrate it, right? I'm to where I'm at today. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love, and again, this is my journey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whoever's journey is where they celebrate it every year, good for them, man. I'm there to congratulate and put my arm around them, give them a hug, whatever. Because again,
Yeah.
I want them to know they're doing something amazing, because they are.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's,
It's those, the counting days is sort of individual based, like some
mhm.
people it really helps them. Like it just builds momentum, and like they have like an app on their phone where it literally the first thing they see is their days. And it
My
just
wife
super
has that.
motivates them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
love that. And then I have other people who it triggers them. Like they're like, "Oh, I got 90 days sober. I deserve like a cheat day." And some people it like works the opposite, or it freaks them out. Like so, it's just like you gotta what's worse for you? Let's go about it the way it worked.
Yeah,
It's
what
different.
works for you? Yeah, it's definitely your journey. Gosh, Amber, I could sit down and talk to you for another hour. I mean, seriously, I love where this whole show has gone and the topics that we've touched on, and we've already hit just a little over an hour, which is, I mean, I don't care. I could do a 2-hour show. But you do your podcast, right? Putting down the shovel.
Hmm.
How do people find that? I mean, it's on YouTube. Is that all they punch in, is putting down the shovel and it pulls up?
Yeah. Now you can find it on the regular podcast platforms.
Okay.
You can find me on social media, but mainly I'm a YouTuber.
Okay.
So the best place to find me is on YouTube. But if you're like a podcast, like if you listen on Spotify or Apple or whatever, you can pull it up. You can type in
Okay.
my name and it'll come up. On YouTube, it's Put the Shovel Down, which I know is a little hard to remember because it's like, what does that mean? Well, it's an old recovery saying that just means you hit your bottom when you put the shovel down. You don't have to keep digging. You don't have to burn every bridge. You can decide I've suffered enough. Let's move on. Put the
Yeah.
shovel down, because my goal is to help people before they lose everything. I'm not a big wait for bottom person. I'm like, nah, let's get on track here.
Yeah. And I've done this show. I've interviewed people from the UK, Canada, and all over the United States. Someone listens to this, and I don't know, where are you located?
I am in South Carolina. I'm
South
in
Carolina.
Greenville specifically. Yeah.
Okay. So how does somebody find you? I mean, if someone all of a sudden pulls up and hears this show on YouTube, my show, and
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love what this woman is saying."
Hmm.
How can they find you? Because I want to make sure, I'd like to have notes down at the bottom so
Yeah.
you find someone.
Yeah. Our website is familyrecoveryacademy.online. And if I know a lot, we talked today a lot about like getting through to a spouse. If you have that issue, we run this challenge once a month called the Denial Breakthrough Challenge. We call it Motivation Unlocked, like unlock their motivation. And it's exactly what we're talking about. Like, how do you find that person's motivation, pull them forward instead of trying to like shake it out of them or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, we do that once every month or 6 weeks or so. That's a great place to start. Um, we have tons of programs, and we look at it from both sides. My experience is working directly with the person who has an addiction. My content, a lot of it is about helping family members understand that person so that they have better ways of reaching them.
Well, and you're doing it right. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because you're my guest. It's because I have definitely learned and figured out and heard others say that you cannot take someone who's working on their sobriety to get clean and then put them back in a toxic environment, even though it's family, because if they don't understand, both parties have to understand, right? Because there's healing on both sides.
Right.
This side has to heal just as much as this side has to heal for everything to really work the way that makes it stronger.
Right. Because one triggers the other and back and forth and back and forth. Right. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I'm going to email Charlene too and says, hey, just please make sure just to double check the link. Because I don't want
Yeah.
any misspelling or anything like that. So I can make sure that I put it in the
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. As you can see, I get all jazzed up. I get a little worked up.
That's okay. I love
Yeah.
that though. I love that about a lot of my guests because I get the same way. It's such a passion and I get to where sometimes I'm one of those guys that I wear my heart on my sleeve and I guess that's why people know that I'm legit because I do. I'll break down and tear up, because it means so much to me. And there's still a lot for me to learn. And I had someone ask me years ago if I was going through therapy when I was going through all this stuff with my wife. And at first I said no. And I used to record my shows on Thursday. And then I'm like, no, no, actually I do go to therapy. And they're like, really, when? And I'm like, every Thursday.
Hmm.
Like, really? And I says, yeah, I'm actually in session right now. And they're like,
Hmm.
no, we're doing a podcast. I says, exactly.
Right.
Because I get to learn, right? I get to learn a
I'm
lot.
thinking through my problems. I'm thinking
I'm,
through my situation. I'm figuring things out and having light bulbs. What's better than that?
yeah, right.
Great.
It's
Yeah.
great. It works out
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to interview you and thank you for finding us and reaching out and wanting to be a guest on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And thank you for all the good work you're doing. And I can
Oh,
see your heart is all in it.
yes, yes, it is. I get excited just like you. And who knows, maybe one day down the road we'll get to meet in person. You never know
Yeah,
where life is going to go. There's
that's
so
right.
many people that I've guests that I've had on my show where we have just become really, really good friends. As a matter of fact, my coaches, they did the same thing. They had their assistant reach out to me. They ended up coming on the show as a guest. And next thing I know, they're coaching me and they're out of Canada. And
Hmm.
they actually came down to our 2024 Healing Utah Success Summit, drove all the way down from Canada and opened
Wow.
an event for us, which was really,
That
really,
is cool. Yeah.
it's great to meet individuals like yourself. So with that being said, gosh, again, thank you, Amber. I really do appreciate everything that you do to help other individuals. Thank you for your time. And I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, Emergo Academy. Thank you, Dave and Susan. I love you guys to death. You guys are amazing, amazing people. I want to say thank you to all our past guests and our future guests, guys. We this year is just I'm just in awe. I mean, I'm booked all the way out till May, and I'm just like,
Wow.
gosh, people are just coming out of the woodwork. So, and again, the biggest part of it is because of our listeners, guys. Thank you. You guys are the ones that's making this all possible. And somebody asked me last night if I was tired of doing a show, and I says it's almost 5 years old in March, and I says, and I am not sick of it yet. So I still got the drive and still want to do it. So thank you very much. And we're going to leave you with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.